my god, look at that spoiler warning! Hello again, it's me. The guy that made a video about this anime a while ago. Do you remember that? Probably not, because most of my subs are from my Rain World stuff. But I wanted to make this video anyway, as a buffer between the first and second halves of a really big project. Anyway, before I get started, this video is going to be covering the manga of Girls Last Tour instead of the anime. I already covered the anime, but watch that video, I'm actually pretty proud of it. Anyway, let's get started. So for the uninitiated, Girls Last Tour is a post-apocalyptic slice of life series where two girls, Chito and Yuri, ride around on a German tractor having philosophical discussions and looking for supplies. Most of the show involves them just riding around, talking and experiencing the ruins of an old layered city. That's overly simplified, but there's a reason I made an entire video explaining the content of this series in more detail. As I mentioned in the last video, Girls Last Tour is my favorite anime of all time. It also just so happens to be my favorite manga of all time. This series has the privilege of being the only manga that I own every volume of.
Wow, would you look at that?
Though that's also mostly because Made in Abyss isn't done yet. So hold on, if you've already made a video about this, why the fuck are you covering it again? You dumb or something? You just want to milk this series for more content? Well, yes, but also, I love this series with all my heart. The character dynamics and artwork keep me coming back to it, and probably will for the rest of my life. I'm very certain I will only forget this series when I'm dead in the ground. Anyway, let's move away from the nondescript, hyperbolizing, praise-showering business, and more into structured discussion. Now, the primary differences between the anime and the manga are pretty obvious. Anime is animated, fully colored, voice-acted, and has a whole score behind it, whereas manga is a purely visual medium, with the only pacing being the speed at which the reader actually flips through the pages. This, in my opinion, can add or take away from the experience. For example, Junji Ito is known as the master of the page turn, using the agency of the reader to frighten them even more. But I feel as though this agency hurts Girls Last Tour in a way. What makes the anime so good is that the characters and environments are given time to breathe. Each second of time is used to draw focus to a certain element. It doesn't feel fast-paced, at least most of the time. It feels like you're just hanging out, watching this slow series, taking in the world with these girls. But when the pacing is in the hands of, let's say, an impatient motherfucker that just wants to see on the next page so that he can finish reading and get this video out, it kind of takes away from it a little bit. Of course, that's an entirely subjective criticism, as this also aids in the experience. You can either blaze through every gorgeous, massive panel showcasing the breathtaking views of this world, or you can stare at it for minutes straight without taking away from the experience, like pausing an anime might. I feel as though the anime also does give something else. It makes the characters that seem a little bit more static in the manga a bit more human. It gives them more depth. The voice work and animation make these two girls feel much more alive than the manga is able to. That's not really a fault in the manga, it might just be a limit of the medium, but I do feel as though it's something that the anime does have over its original counterpart. Their characterization is so on point that I struggle to believe that the voice actors are real people and not AI fabrications made specifically to voice these characters. The manga does have something else that the anime doesn't, a very, very strong style. It really makes the whole manga a much greater experience that really feels like the love child of someone with a fantastic creative vision. While the anime does incredibly well when it comes to bringing this series to life, the manga has a much homier style to it. The anime was made by a team of potentially hundreds of people with a studio-level budget, professional voice actors, and a team of animators and musicians working to bring it all to life. And while it works, the product is incredible, sometimes you just want to sit down and read something that one person poured their heart and soul into. The little comments from Tsukamitsu at the end of every volume really enhances this experience. The amount of patience and love that must have gone into bringing this to life is breathtaking, and it's such a pleasure to read in its original form. The line art is heavy, the shading is simple, but even so, everything is just so detailed. The anime really doesn't do the structure art justice in my opinion. It's fantastic, but the intricacy of the heavy outlines really emboldens the tiny details on these structures so much that I can just get lost in them. Now, I'm never gonna stop gushing about this art. You can't stop me, this is my video, and I can't fucking believe how much work must have gone into some of the shots here. The more refined studio-made style of the anime doesn't do as good of a job at showcasing the absolute inanity of these structures. The more loose line art really helps to accentuate the complexity of these structures. It's like a Where's Waldo image, but instead of people, it's pipes, rebar, and breathtaking views. Looking at some of these views really just gives you the same awestruck feeling the main characters have sometimes, and it just brings you more and more into this manga. Now, the anime is almost totally faithful story-wise. Barely anything has changed, though certain moments are given more time to breathe. For example, the Song of Raindrops is literally 3 or 4 pages in the manga, but is over 2 minutes in the anime, taking up an entire credit scene with the full musical number. Some of the little drawings at the end of the chapters are even animated into the flow of the scenes. But of course, 12 episodes isn't enough to cover 6 manga volumes. The anime only covers up to volume 4, and with how long it's been, I doubt we're getting a season 2. Though if we are, I'm going to modify my sleep schedule to catch every episode the picosecond it comes out. Anyway, on to the main draw of the manga, the fact that it contains the end of the story. Volumes 5 through 6, particularly Volume 6, cover the end of the tour. And I intend to cover their content in a loose way that allows for context to my talking points. So, I want to reiterate the spoiler warning here. If you have not read the Girls Last Tour manga all the way to the end, remedy that mistake. This is not a request, this is a demand. I don't care if you gotta sail the high seas to do it, read the manga, please. Anyway, let's start out with Volume 5. The first chapter of Volume 5 involves the girls beginning their trek to the lift that should lead them to their goal, the highest stratum, the top of the city. They begin their journey by searching for water. Some light banter ensues. You suggest that they pee onto the ice to get water. Chito says no, as she doesn't want to drink pea water. Ha! Couldn't relate. Ow. They find some waterways, heat up some canned tuna, and get the water they were looking for. Yu enjoys the canned tuna so much that she starts uncontrollably giggling, asking if people in the past got to eat food like this all the time. The next chapter starts with Chito breaking her ankle, or at least spraining it due to some falling debris. This allows Yuri to pull herself together for once and start driving. This chapter answers a long-awaited question. Can Yuri drive? Short answer, kinda. Long answer, anyway, after that life-changing experience, you get some ice for Chi's ankle, and they take a break. After that comes one of my favorite Girls Last Tour chapters. Chito and Yuri find an art gallery in the middle of buttfuck nowhere. After entering it, they see some statues in Renaissance Michelangelo-esque style. Similar to modern art galleries, they have things written next to them on plaques to explain them, which is written in our language. But Chito can't read them, stating that it must be ancient people language. This suggests that in the time between the apocalypse and the tour, a new written language came up, which is interesting, but not all that relevant to the story. Chito and Yuri continue onwards, finding paintings, including the birth of Venus? Okay, that brings up a lot of stuff I'm not fully qualified to speculate on, but it's cool, I guess. The primary event of the story comes when the girls find a massive painting that has fallen off the wall, and pull it back up to its original spot, seeing that it's a sprawling, probably very important painting. They question the nature of the art before Yu draws something of her own and pastes it on the wall next to a cave painting. The first and last pieces of art made by mankind, right next to one another. Now this manga has a very, very good habit of lingering on a very important shot and then showing it again in the next panel, but just zoomed out. There's probably a really artistic and poetic reasoning behind why this fucks me up so bad, but goddammit, I don't have the words right now, The next chapter is fairly simple. Both the girls find a water fountain. They wash their clothes, and Yu ruins everything again. Now they're both soaked and have to hang up their clothes. Though Yu has an idea. She pulls out some cloth, cutting it up to make some makeshift togas and tunics. They inquire about really ancient people, wondering if this is how clothes were first invented, before comparing those people to themselves. A simple, nice, easy chapter. There aren't many of those left. The next chapter involves Chito and Yuri getting a nicotine addiction. That's a joke, but they do smoke. They find their way up through an old building, questioning the afterlife, before encountering a room with some cigarettes in it, and a photo of the people that used to live there. They smoke their cigarettes and either meet some ghosts or hallucinate before finishing the chapter, stating that they can't talk to dead people. The fucking weird chapter is what that was. What the hell? The next 2 chapters I'll cover as one, because they seem fit to be one big chapter. It begins with the girls finding the tower that contains the lift, but with no way to get in, they must find one. They locate a light tower that appears to be connected to a loose panel. After a bit of setup and conversation about remembering, they blow the tower sky high, though nothing happens. Or so it would seem. The inside of the tower lights up, and the girls meet with an unnamed AI that runs Core Tower 6, or so this tower is called. The AI takes the form of a hologram, and is elated to see humans after so long. She also states that she has lost communication with her sisters. By her words, she acts as an intermediary between the worker machines and the humans. The girls have all sorts of questions about how she functions, why her body can stretch and take so many different shapes, what she is, and whether or not she's lonely. She answers the last question with a yes, and then alludes to something that she can now finally do. Ooh, foreboding. She leads them into a terminal room, asking for a favor. She wants them to terminate her. She has no meaning anymore. Eternity without oblivion, as she calls it.
Unlimited memory accumulation and unlimited loss accumulation. All your thoughts end up incomprehensible. It's like an eternal sleeplessness.
She won't be able to die until the very, very last of the city's backup power is depleted. So she wants to end there. Yu confirms the terminal and she begins to disappear, stating her final words.
As far as society is concerned, when it comes to unrelated places, travelers and gods are quite similar. So I want to ask. I want to pray. I have been the god of failed work. Farewell.
I know, right? Like, what the fuck does this mean? It's so esoteric, yet so slightly understandable. It's obvious that the ancient people were very religious. There's an entire episode dedicated to a temple. Maybe they made the AI to act like a god or something. In other words, why does this give me Rain World vibes? Why do I keep reviewing suicidal robots on my damn channel? The final chapter of Volume 5 is a real punch to the gut, just a dick kick and a half, only rivaled by the last chapter of the manga as a whole, in my opinion. It begins right where we left off. The lift is moving, and Chito has a flashback to before the tour. It's pretty simple. They're very young. Yuri and her are having a snowball fight. They eat, and then they get head pats from their grandpa. It's then revealed that this was a dream inside of a flashback. Weird. And that Chito was sleeping instead of doing her homework or something. She is told to get Yuri, does so, and is told in a brief but meaningful speech by her grandpa that she needs to run away.
These are old uniforms, but I've adjusted them to fit you. If there's anything else you want to take with you, go and get it now. You remember how to drive it, right? You two can make your escape through the old winter waste pipe. If you escape towards the west, there's a tower beyond the slope. Go up there, not down. The provisions will last longer for just the two of you. Man tends to forget things easily, even when they have an accumulation of knowledge available. And yet, I wonder if history will just keep repeating itself.
Explosions sound in the distance as the two ride away from their grandfather, leaving him for the last time. Chi wakes up, the lift having reached its destination. The chapter ends with the girls discussing memory. Memories can hurt, but just up and forgetting everything would be lonely, right? This chapter is some of the only backstory we get for the two girls, and some of the only backstory that we truly need. Volume 6. Volume 6 begins with a chilling chapter that sets the tone for the rest of the series. The girls get stuck in a blizzard and have to pull over and build an igloo as the cold becomes too much for them. Yu is easily warmed, but Chi seems to have caught a chill, so in some classic Yuri bait moe nonsense, they use each other's bodies for warmth. No, not like that, in a much nicer way that reminds me of just how touch-starved I really am. They wake up having braved the blizzard and set out. The chapter ends on an ominous view of the top layer from below. The next chapter has the girls exploring a NASA-esque space travel facility. They investigate diagrams of planets before they tap on Earth, and are able to see several different markers traveling off of it, two somewhat near the Earth and one very far away. These are confirmed to have been rockets from this facility, 2 of which's flights ended far away from Earth, their routes ending in an X, and the third is quite curious, going so far it leaves the room itself on the hologram. They never see its routes end. After some action, and you almost getting them both killed again, they end the chapter wondering just how far away that third craft is now, giving a little bit of hope about the potential survival of humanity somewhere out there. Continuing this train of loosely gut-wrenching thoughts, the next chapter involves the girls finding a massive library. Throughout the whole series, Cheeto has been shown to value knowledge, collecting books, writing out a log of their adventure, and valuing her own intelligence above Yu's strength. It makes sense she'd be super excited to see this massive library. And hyped she sure as hell is, though she's quickly overwhelmed. The library is so massive, likely containing a record of almost all human knowledge. It's like the internet except when people still read things instead of watching people talk about reading things. Anyways, they explore the library before having a huge discussion about the nature of ambition. Building a huge city, reaching outer space, or scaling a huge city, all of it comes down to a desire to do something before it all ends. She ends this huge discussion with the truly philosophical phrase, "Yum, calf. Yeah. Yeah." This next chapter is a sad one, as we witness the death of the best character in the series. No, not Cheeto, not Yuri. They live, but it truly is a sad day as Kettenkrad meets its end. It breaks down in the middle of a ride, its track snapping. She tries to fix it, but finds that every time she tries to fix something, something else breaks, and decrees its lifespan over. She and Yu build it into a bath, draining its fuel to heat the water. They take a bath, and Chi begins to cry. Yu comforts her by singing a song, which I fucking hope is made into a full scene, like the Song of Raindrops is, if this gets animated, which it better. They take some sips of wine to take their minds off of things, and leave the Kettenkrad behind, Chi thanking Best Girl for everything. God bless Kettenkrad, may you rest in waifu heaven for all eternity. They take only what they can carry moving forwards. This is the beginning of the end. The next chapter begins the final saga of the series. From here things get serious, and my tear ducts open wide. Walking seems to tire the girls out, so they have to be efficient. They toss the guns and eat the canned tuna first. And eventually, they run out of fuel and have to burn the books. They save the journal for last, but even that has to go. Cheeto states that every time she burns a book, she feels a little bit of her memory fading, and god damn it, this chapter hurts, like a lot. They walk, they burn, and they sleep, over and over again. The joy they get is in eating, sleeping, and waking up alive the next day. Even Cheeto has stopped caring about her memories, now just happy to wake up. This next chapter is simply just the staircase up. They encounter it, it's dark, and they have one final sip of kaf, burning the last of their journal. It gets darker quickly, and Yu reveals that she's afraid of the dark, stating a time when she was a baby and was trapped in the dark. The two hold hands to not lose each other, and have a speech about how, right now, the whole world feels like just the two of them, which is kind of meta considering the state of the series being, the manga following the two of them. But that's not that important. They get to the final layer, which is the last chapter, appropriately called Last Stop, is my favorite piece of media in any manga. I will never stop thinking about it. Let's get started. If you don't read any of the manga, read this chapter, please. One way or another, I'm still going to talk about it, so consider this your third and final spoiler warning. They reach the top layer, seeing it is only a wide open plain, nothing above them, just a wide, snowy, flat plain of concrete. There is one object here, though. A snow-covered black slab surrounded by stone rubble. Cheeto reveals that they don't have any more food, which is ominous. She begins to doubt the validity of their journey, and Yu responds to this by pelting her in the face with a snowball. Yu shouts out her philosophy in a scene that just gets me every time I read it. I don't know what would have been the best thing to do, why we may be the only two people left on this world. There's a lot I don't know, but living sure has been great. This whole scene is set against my favorite 2 pages in all of the manga. Fucking look at this! Look at this! God. The girls then state what is, in my opinion, the primary message that this manga wants to get across. The world is wide, complicated, and scary. The joy in living comes in seeing, touching, feeling, and everything in between. The final lines of the manga are as the girls eat the last ration that they thought was an explosive, which is surprising amounts of negligence, before taking a nap. They say that they'll think about where they go after they next take a nap, and fall asleep under the morning sun. Now that's where the manga officially ends, but luckily we were graced with an extra chapter when Volume 6 actually came out. It zooms out, showing the whole top layer, and flashes through every corner of this dead world. The apartment complexes where they met with Kanazawa, the inside of a complex, the bottom of a harbor littered with sunken submarines and broken massive statues, and a beach with a skeleton buried half under the sand. Before it finally stops on the staircase. I love this panel with all my heart. It really captures the entire emotion of these last 2 chapters. And it's my background to this day, just to make sure that every time I open my laptop I get an extra dose of emotional annihilation. Before finally stopping on the black slab, showing what was on it. Now I have no clue what this means, so I'm not going to pretend that I do, but the girls' helmets and bags are there too. They aren't, however. Maybe they died in their sleep, either freezing to death or dying of thirst. Maybe they left it all behind and died or killed themselves so that they didn't have to starve. Or maybe, wild theory here, they were transported to another fucking place. Maybe the slab was a teleportation thing. I got no idea. We see the girls again in Tsukumitsu's other work, Shimenji's Simulation. Though the nature of this world is yet to be explained, they're there. Chito and Yuri are in another manga, alive and well. Or maybe it's not alive and well, maybe it's the afterlife, we're not sure. The final message has the 2 girls wandering through a wheat field, the same wheat field that we see in the first cover of Shimenji's Simulation. They could have died and Shimenji is actually the afterlife, or they could have been teleported to the whack-ass surrealist slice-of-life comedy universe of Shimenji. Or maybe I'm just high on copium, who knows. One way or another, the manga's over. My favorite series ends on that note. But just because it's over doesn't mean I'm gonna forget it. I sure as hell never will. In conclusion, Girls' Last Tour is a manga with a lot to say. Like, a lot to say. Sometimes this manga can feel less like a story, and more like Tsukumitsu just rambling all her philosophical nonsense in manga form. But that's not particularly a bad thing. In the end, Girls' Last Tour is a series about life and death. Not life and death, life in death. Sure, the end can be scary, but who says it has to be? All types of books tell you about the little things in life, but in my eyes, none do it so well as Girls' Last Tour. This manga tells you that the things in between the big events are just as important as the big events themselves. Loss is sad, but you still have your memories. Even when you don't, you're still alive. You don't have to be going out of your way to do everything to make your life worthwhile. Merely living is good enough in and of itself. Or at least that's how I see it. Maybe it's going for the opposite message. Who knows? I don't even think the manga itself does. Maybe that's why I like it so much. But I like this series so much I spent almost $100 on all 6 manga volumes, and I've only actually read the volumes themselves instead of the online version around like twice. So, if my rambling doesn't tell you it's worth the read, hopefully my actions do. Anyway, I gotta get back to my Tsukumitsu shrine. Thanks for listening.